Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you new here, my name is Donna, and for those of you not new, thank you so much for continuing to come back and support my channel. Today I am doing the next installment in our Palette Roulette series, in which I let an app choose a palette that I use throughout the week, and then I come back to you with my opinions about the palette that we used and let the app choose another palette for me. This week, the palette that was chosen for me was the BH Cosmetics Color Festival palette. This is, I believe, the second one in line for the BH Cosmetics Festival series. This one came out in March of 2019. And then the year previous to that, they released this one, which was the BH Cosmetics Weekend Festival palette. This one is a little bit different. You see, this one is like really moody and dark and like sunsetty, and it has the like Ferris wheel on it. This one's like super tie-dye. It reminds me of those like color fun runs that people can do where they're throwing like chalk at you. That's what the exterior of this package looks like. I love the green, the like chartreusey neon green. This is the packaging of it, and on the back on this side it has the formulation, talks to you about the eye looks that you can create with this, a rock vibrant eye looks that sparkle and pop with our Color Festival 20 shade palette, and then a little picture of what the palette looks like. I find this picture is not really, I find this is a little bit dark actually. It's just a sleeve cover, and you pull the palette out. It looks the exact same on the outside of the palette, and then on the inside we have a little bit of that like Ferris wheel theme that was on the festival palette the year previous. It's got a nice size mirror in it, and then these are the shadows in the palette. So there are 20 shadows in this palette. There is 0.77 ounces in this palette, or 22 grams, which means that each one of these pans is approximately 0.04 ounces, so 0.04 ounces of product. It's actually 0.0385 ounces of product in each pan, which isn't a bad, it's not a bad amount of product in each one of these pans. I feel like it's actually kind of a good amount of product. I feel like it'll take us quite a bit of time to get through these pans, most of them anyways. This is a combination of mattes and shimmers and metallics, really, in formulation, but there are only 7 mattes. The 7 mattes are this one here, which is kind of like a chartreusey green. It reminds me of, I think I said in my last Palette Roulette where I was introducing this palette, it reminds me of the inside of an avocado, and that's kind of the color that it looks. Then we have this like really red toned brown here, this really peach tone shade here. Then we have this chic right here, which is a kind of a darker peach tone brown. We have this one here, this one here, and this one here. So there's not very many mattes in this palette to speak of. Honestly, most of them are more along the metallic range, and I'll tell you why I say that in a minute, and the rest are shimmers. So the reason why I differentiated mattes or metallics to shimmers is because I find that the metallics in this palette are a little bit more clumpy and chunky than the shimmers are. This is a shimmer here that performs beautifully. This one is a shimmer that performs beautifully. This is a shimmer that performs beautifully. But when you get into these colors here, and even this one here, it's like super chunky. Fallout Central, I have to be honest. Like I said, this does have 20 shades, both warm and cool tone shades. It does have a little bit of combination of color ranges here. It's got some pops of color, but you can actually pull off a really nice neutral eye look with this palette as well. I believe I have some pictures and did a couple videos the other day with a more like gold and brown toned eye, which I thought was beautiful. One of the standouts in this palette, I feel like, are these darker shades here. Most of the time, these darker shades, they're black based, they're metallic, and they're chunky. So once you get them on your eye, you feel like they just show up black. but these actually perform really well with the color tone that is the glitter within them. So this one is actually on my eye today. It's on the outer and innermost portions of my eye look, and I really do feel like it performs like a blue black. And I've used all of these shades. The one that I think performs the worst as far as that goes is this one. It really does come out more as a black than it does as a like bronzy goldy with a black base. It definitely shows up more black. I had to pack it on and pack it on and pack it on to my eye look. This one is super, super clumpy. Like when you dig a brush into it, it does come off very, very clumpy, and it's just aggravating to some extent. I used almost every day, I used this tone here, which is called Experience. That shade is like the perfect transition shade in my opinion. It works really well as just a lay down over the top of your eye primer shade, and then I would go in with this one over the top of that just to like deepen it up a little bit. It is a little more peachy in nature, so you are going to come out with a little more peachy tone with both of them actually, but they perform very nicely. The mattes in this palette perform really well. I am really actually pretty stoked about the mattes in this palette. I would say this one performs more like a pink than it does what it appears in the pan. It appears more fuchsia, so a little more purple based than it shows up on the eye. On the eye, it is a little more hot pink. It is actually in my crease. Sorry, my card filled up. I can't remember where it was going. I use this one often in my brow bone. It is a white, but definitely looks a little more golden. So you guys can see that on my finger. It reminds me of Trust Issues in the Jackie Aina palette where it looks white in the pan, but it is definitely more of a golden tone. This one here is one that actually drew my attention to the palette initially when I was first introducing it, but also overall. Sorry guys, I'm blinding you. And I just find it fell flat to me. It is in my eye look today. It is kind of what I buffed out, this upper like hard line, and it works well in that fashion. It works well when packed onto the inner corner. But other than that, I just feel like it's a lackluster color. I will say that in comparison to the Weekend Festival palette, I'll bring them both up here. You are finding several shades that are similar in tone, but there is not any duplicates in here, and I can go through some of the shadows for you and show you that there's not really any duplicates, but there are some similarities in tone. Both of the blues, the darker blues in this palette are pretty similar. Some of the pinks in this palette are pretty similar to the other. I don't think that you necessarily need both of these palettes if you have one, but this one you are going to be able to pull off those darker, grungier looks from, just simply because of these shades over here. I will also say that with this one, I had to really dip in many times to get the pigmentation that I wanted from the shadows, and I didn't feel like I needed to do that with the Weekend Festival palette, so I feel like it's just a little bit more lackluster than I was anticipating because of my experience with the Weekend Festival palette. I did use it both with a primer and without a primer today. This eye look is actually without a primer. I feel like they perform just as well with or without. I feel like their longevity isn't manipulated by the fact that there might be a primer on your lid versus when there isn't a primer on your lid. I don't feel like any of those things really helped cater to my thought processes on this palette. I feel like some of the shadows work better with a tacky eye primer than without a tacky eye primer. And I definitely think that the shimmers in this palette, as opposed to even the Weekend Festival palette, need to be packed on with your finger. And even when they are packed on with your finger, they end up super chunky. I know I had that problem. I had to go over this eye look several times with a brush just because I had some of the chunkier metallics on my lid. and it just wasn't working out for me. Like, you could literally see the chunkiness of the shadow on my lid, and that's no good to me. I am, you know, an older lady, and I love color, so when I dive into color, I want it to look as good as possible on my lids, even though my lids might be creasy or crepey. And some of these shadows really just kind of exacerbated the crepiness of my eyelids, which is my fault, not the shadow's fault. It's my fault for being old. I will say also that with the straight up chunkiness of these eyeshadows, because most of them really are living in that metallic or shimmer mindset, and those are super chunky. The mattes are not, but the other ones are, and the mattes only make up 7 of the 20 shades in here. I would say doing your eyes first is going to be what you want to do. If doing your eyes first is not your game, if that's not how you like to put on makeup, then this palette isn't for you. If dipping in with your fingers to create a more balanced shimmer look is not your bag, then this is not the palette for you. You all know I don't like dipping in with my fingers either, so I made it work as much as possible without having to dip into my fingers. The ones that I would really say that you need to dip in with your fingers on are these 4 here, and then some of the more metallic-y in nature. So this one, the rest in this palette are more shimmers, and they perform really well with the brush. I would say wetting them doesn't make any difference in how they perform as far as the shimmers go. They're really opaque in nature from the minute you put them on, whether they're wet or not. I would go in with a dry brush and first pat it down, and then go in with a wet one and pack it on, and then go in with a dry one, pack it on, and then kind of buff it out. I just felt like I was spending a whole lot more time with this palette than I remember spending with the Weekend Festival palette, and I believe that we've done a palette roulette on the Weekend Festival palette, so I will link that one up here, but I always have my playlist in my description box, so there's that. So I'm going to go through first and swatch the shades in this palette, and then we'll swatch some of the similar shades next to each other that are in both palettes, so that you can decide for yourself whether it's a palette that you need or not. This was a limited edition, but you can still, it's not on the BH Cosmetics website, neither is the Weekend Festival palette, but you can still pick both of them up at other retailers like Beauty Bay, or Poshmark has them, Mercari has them, eBay has it, which I don't know, this hit and miss when you start diving into there, but I did see it on Beauty Bay. It does have a 4.7 star rating, like rough average of 4.6, 4.7 star rating. It is a decent palette. I don't mind it. It's just, I think I struggled with it a little bit more than I remember struggling with the Weekend Festival palette, and some of the shades really performed lackluster for me. So first row, we have Disco, which is a white to gold duochrome shade, then which is a shimmer. Then we have EDM, which is a true like gold, yellow gold, and then we have Banger, which is a really pretty light peach tone shimmer, and then we have Chic, which is that like peachy toned brown, and then we have Center Stage, which is a like really rusty, dirty, kind of like grungy copper, like patinaed copper, or patinaed bronze shade. That is your first row. I'm going to put a little more of the Chic here so that you can see that a little bit better. So that is your first row. Second row, this is Experience, and this is the like yellow toned peach that I used every single day to set my eye primer. Then we have Fringe, which is a dark brown, dark like orange brown, almost a copper shimmer shade. And this one actually performs really well Then we have Groove, which is one of the only mattes. It is a bright pink matte shade. And then we have Candy, which is a beautiful duochrome. Let me see if I can get a better swatch of that. Beautiful, like duochrome pink to coral shade that I love, love, love. And then we have the Rave, which is the grungy, like black-based purple in there. It's actually like a black-based pinky mauve. And the reason why I refrain from calling it a purple is because there's one right underneath it, but this one's more of a pinky tone. It performs on the eye more of a pinky tone, and then the one underneath it is more of the purple. It is a beautiful, beautiful shade. I did have an eye look where that was all over the lid, and I love that shade. Those ones are really super creamy too. I know it doesn't, like, a lot of the times those black base shades with the glitter in them really are almost like dry to the touch. These ones are really actually kind of creamy, but I think that is also part of their downfall, whereas they perform pretty chunky. I don't know if you guys can see this, but I have fallout all over my shirt from this palette. That's just from the swatches. The next row, we have Hollow, which is a really pretty light blue. This is the shade that is all over in the center of my lid, and then I have it topped with Disco, which was that first duochrome white to gold, kind of like the Trust Issues, right on the center of my lid. But this is all over my lid today. And then we have Denim, which is a really pretty blue shade. This is in my crease, and it is just a really pretty, I would say this is more satiny than anything else. It does have a little bit of a sheen to it. Then we have this shade here, which is called Sequins, and it is a matte. It is a like fuchsia toned matte, leans more pink in your eye looks. It is in my eye look today. Then we have this one here, which is Pop, right? Yeah, Pop, and it is just a really pretty lilac shade. It doesn't show up really well in eye looks on my skin tone, but it could be just a really beautiful shade if you really wanted this shade all over the lid. I bet you that would be stunning with even that fuchsia next to it. And then the grungy purple tone on the end, and this is VIP. And this is also just a really beautiful shade. As chunky as those shades are, and as hard as they are to get smoothed out over the top of my eyelids anyways, they were some of my favorite colors in the palette because they just lean a little dark and dangerous, you know. They were really great for deepening up like outer edges or whatnot in an eye look. Because they were so black based. But my favorite part about them, like I said, is even though they were black based, they still showed up with the color that they were intended to show up in your eye look, which is rare. I've never really had a black based glitter formulaed eyeshadow that didn't show up more black than the glitter color that it was supposed to show up. So they did a really good job with these. All right, the last row, we have DJ, which my hand is a little bit pink, but we have DJ, which is a really like warm tone brown. It's like a red brown, and it is a really great deepening shade. Then we have this shade here, which is Queen, and it is just a icy lavender, but not. It's kind of like mauve, I guess. Really, really pretty shimmer shade. I really love this shade, and that one coupled with Rave was just made a beautiful eye look. Then we have Haze, which is the shade that I was really looking forward to using, and it swatches really well, but it actually doesn't perform this well in the eye look. Like I said, it is in my eye look today. It is that top shade that merges the pink and the brow bone, and I like it. It just didn't perform as pigmented as you see it here in any eye look that I did. And then we have this green here, which is called Electronic. You guys can see it is a little lackluster, honestly. I do have it in my eye look today, but it is packed on and packed on and packed on and packed on some more. And it is in the center of the darker blue and the light blue, just to merge those two colors together. And you really can't tell that it's there. Honestly, I know it's there, but you can't tell that it's there. And then we have the grungy shade, which is called Rage, and it is just a really beautiful blue black. I love that shade. It is so pretty. It is in my eye look today. And again, like, I cannot say enough about those black based glitters in this palette. I think that they did a really good job with them, because I have, again, never felt them be as creamy as these ones were, nor have the glitter portion, the portion that it's actually supposed to show up as, actually perform better than the black in the palette. So they did really well. Okay, so with that being said, now we have these two palettes that have some shades, wow, some shades that look really similar. So I am going to swatch the two blues. So this blue here and this blue here. I think that that was a shade that I was wondering how well they went together. So they're both really more of a sheeny blue. So both of them are more of a satin than they are a matte. And these are those two blues. So they're super similar. This one is the one out of the current palette this week, and this one is the one out of the Weekend Festival. I just feel like the Weekend Festival one performed better. I mean, you can see that in the swatch. They are different colors though. You can also see that in the swatch. Secondarily, I am going to do this pink here against this pink here, because I think that they look very similar. So we're going to take the one from the Weekend Festival on that finger and the one from the Color Festival on this finger, and you can see that they look very different on my finger. One is more coral tone, so this one is from our current palette, and this one is from Weekend Festival, so two different colors. You can see one is definitely more pink, one is definitely more coral. Again, I just feel like the Weekend Festival one performed a whole lot better in that swatch than the one from the other palette. I feel like the shades that could be duped out in these palettes, those are probably the only two. Let me know if there's another one that you think could have, maybe this fuchsia and that fuchsia. Let's do that. So this fuchsia and this fuchsia. Oh, there's definitely a huge difference. I don't know if you guys can see that, but the one from our palette this week is a lot more pink toned than the one in the Weekend Festival palette. And you can definitely see that in the swatch. But again, folks, this is the swatch from the Weekend Festival palette, and this is the swatch from the Color Festival palette. I just feel like the ones from the Weekend Festival palette performed so much better than this Color Festival palette did. I'm not disappointed. I did have a lot of fun with this palette. I love this eye look I have on right now. I loved every single eye look I came up with this palette, but I feel like I struggled a little bit more with this palette than I ever have with a BH palette, to be honest. I really kind of enjoy the BH formula. I have several of their palettes at this point, and I'm not unhappy that I do. So that's my feelings on that palette. I feel like it was a great palette. I feel like I'll keep it in my collection, but I just feel like if you had the choice between, you know, one or the other, the Weekend Festival is probably the better palette. I think the shades perform better. I think that you don't have it nearly as much. I don't know, again, if you guys can see it, but I've got Fallout Central going on my shirt just from doing swatches of this palette. So I don't feel like it's a bad palette. I just think that you got to put a little bit more work into it than you did the Weekend Festival palette, and that was surprising to me. I think there are parts of it that they did really well and parts of it that they could have improved on. So with that being said, we're going to pull for a new palette. For those of you who are new here, I have a Samsung Note 9. I do use an app that I got out of our Play Store, and it is just a Wheel of Fortune like decision app. So it looks like this, and I have all of my palettes in this wheel, and when we spin for a new palette, you just press the button and it spins. I know that you can get apps like this on the iOS system, so if you have an Apple phone and you would like to join me in these palette roulettes, then you also have decision wheels on your app store that you can use as well. I have placed all of my palettes into this wheel, and as we use them, I take them out. As I get new ones, I put them in. We're going to go ahead and spin this. And the palette that it chose is the Natasha Denona Gold palette, which I'm so excited about, you guys. I haven't used it. I've owned it for a while now. Let me go grab that. I'll be right back. So this is the Natasha Denona Gold palette. It's a little more subdued than what we've been working with lately. I am actually really excited to dig into it. I haven't even swatched it yet. Although this brown looks like it's been touched. So does this one. I don't know, that's weird. Maybe my daughter got into it. I'm not sure. I'm really excited to use this palette. I know that across the YouTubes, this was a really exciting palette. I have an affinity for Natasha Denona. I hate that I have an affinity for Natasha Denona because she's dang expensive, but I do have an affinity for her. I do love her shadows, and I am super stoked to dig into this. I am not a huge neutral eyeshadow wearer, so it'll be interesting to see how this thing pans out. And I'm on vacation all week this week, so I'll have plenty of opportunity to create crazy eye looks, and I won't have a crazy eye look kind of palette. So I'm interested with that, but I am so excited to use this palette. I hope that you guys are excited as well to see what I come up with. If you are, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you're notified every single time I upload. I do typically upload content every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I would love to see you guys in my comments section. I hope that you like this video enough that you're considering giving it a big thumbs up. It really does help our channels out here, and I want 2020 to be my year of growth on the YouTubes. I'm having fun here, and I hope that you're having fun as well. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. What palette are you using in your Palette a Week series? And if you don't have one, what palette are you thinking about using when you go into a Palette a Week series? Thank you so much for joining us today, you guys, and until next time, bye guys.